everyone, and welcome to a brand new live episode of Strong Style. There is a special episode of Strong Style. Usually we come in with a lot of energy, a lot of anger, a lot of aggression, a fun passion for the world of professional wrestling. But tonight, we're coming to you live with a special episode to offer our tributes, our condolences, our memories, and our thoughts up to the bad guy up there, Scott Hall, who passed away last night officially due to complications from surgery and heart attacks that he suffered as a result of those surgeries. And sadly, he has passed away, age 63 years old. And we're going to talk about his career, talk about his life, talk about all our favorite stuff here with all of you. And as the show goes along, if there is space, we might bring some of you in live to give your thoughts on Scott Hall as well, depending on how the time goes. But let's introduce ourselves first. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on Strong Style. Aaron, how are you there, my man, down there in Orlando? How you feeling, brother, man? Aaron Turner.
Hey, yo.
Well said.
Yeah, guys, I'm doing okay. People say this is going to happen a lot now, especially like as as people get older, this is going to happen. Like we just lost Tracy Smothers. We just lost Bobby Eaton. We keep losing these legends, man. It's just, unfortunately, it's going to be a thing of life, but I wasn't ready to lose the bad guy, man. I wasn't ready for it. So we're going to talk about his life, keep it low key, and have a good time.
Absolutely. The Store Horsemen, I know that was a podcast you hosted there, Darkitect Chris Burns, and that's a tribute to the Four Horsemen. But I would say another faction that absolutely changed wrestling as well, the NWO. Scott Hall was an essential part of that. Chris Burns, how are you? How are you feeling on this day after we got the news that the great Scott Hall has passed away?
I mean, what other word is there but gutted, man? Scott was exactly he was the perfect archetype for a pro wrestler, in my opinion. And I mean, just size, charisma, ring work, storytelling, knowledge of the business, psychology, whatever, any category that you want to have for pro wrestler. Scott was one of the best at it. No one going to be like him ever again. Just a massive, massive loss to not just us as wrestling fans, but his family as well and his friends. Yeah. And I'm happy to be here to reminisce and talk about our memories of the great Scott Hall.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into all of that. Just a quick reminder, the Streamlabs and Super Chats are open. Already seeing a bunch of people sending in Super Chats. You can send them in through Streamlabs as well. We'll bring them up there. Aaron, it's right above Aaron's head. It's also pinned in the chat now, and it's in the description of this video if you want to send in some remembrances that you want us to read about Scott Hall here, or any questions you might have here on the show as we go along. Aaron, I turn back to you on this one. I mean, listen, from my own personal experience, I knew of Razor Ramon. I knew of this guy in the WWE. This was a time when I wasn't watching that much. I wasn't into the WWE that much. Scott Hall hooked me in when he went to WCW, when he went to the NWO, and created one of the greatest factions, if not the greatest faction, in my opinion, ever in the history of pro wrestling. And it was his essential part. I mean, Nash is who Kevin Nash is. Hogan is who Hogan is. You could argue two alphas. You need that glue in the middle. And you could argue Scott Hall was an essential part of that glue in the middle. And Kevin Nash delivering a wonderful tribute, heartbreakingly wonderful tribute to his friend Scott Hall. No one closer to him. You could argue, we've seen the ups and downs of Scott, the successes of Razor Ramon, that match against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 10. Then we see him leave the WWE. Then we see him create the NWO and change wrestling. WCW beats WWF at the time, WWE rather, for 83 straight weeks. Then he ends up leaving, comes back to the WWE for a little while, then is inducted into the Hall of Fame twice. An incredible career. Aaron, what are your overall thoughts when you think about the legacy, the career, and the times of the great one, Scott Hall?
I think if you talk to somebody that maybe is like a wrestling fan that doesn't watch anymore, they're a lapsed fan or whatever, and you mention Scott Hall or Razor, like somebody, like people will perk up and be like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Like, I don't think I've ever heard somebody, like, if you mention Scott Hall, I don't think they were like, I didn't like that guy. I didn't care for that guy. Never entertained me. Like, no, he always did. So, Always that guy. Like, of course, I'm a Bret Hart guy through and through. I'm a Kurt Hennig guy. So they were Razor Ramon guys, as was I.
Yeah.
Of course, the Click and all that kind of stuff with Shawn Michaels and Diesel and Triple H and Waltman and all those guys.
Yeah.
But I think for me, for Razor, he kind of came to the WWF right when I was like really like getting to watch on a weekly basis, when like Monday Night Raw was a thing, and you could actually follow the action. You have to go to I had to go to my local pharmacy and rent the videotapes to see Razor Ramon and like what he could do. Or he caught it on Superstars like early on Saturday morning to see him beat somebody up. Fun fact, Razor Ramon's first televised match was against Carmella's father, which is interesting fun fact, but that was a thing. And he was in that new gen era, man. Like this is new gen Scott Hall right here. There's the figure. So him and Bret and Shawn and Diesel and Waltman and eventually Triple H and Rocky Maivia and these guys like really just revolutionized that in the 90s. Like they were given the ball when Hulk Hogan was on the way out, when the Warrior was done, when Savage had moved to the commentary role. And you kind of always thought that Razor was going to be this guy. Like when he came in, you're like, oh wow, this is definitely something different, a different character. And I always thought he was destined for the world title. Like you see it there, him and Bret Hart from Royal Rumble 93. Like you kind of always thought that Razor was going to get that world title, but he never did. He never quite got there, which was really interesting. I do also want to mention before we move down to Chris, his first two pay-per-view matches, all right, get this. His first match, he's tagging with a guy named Ric Flair.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to face Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. But the Ultimate Warrior got fired, so they changed it and they inserted one of his best friends in the entire world, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. So it was Mr. Perfect and the Macho Man against Ric Flair and Scott Hall. Your first TV match, you're going up against three other Hall of Famers. Like, it's wild.
Right.
But the match is not good, by the way. I just want to throw that in there. But in his next match, he's fighting for the world title against Bret the Hitman Hart, one of the best ever, two-time Hall of Famer as well. And he went in there with a messed up knee and had a really good match with Bret Hart. And that showed the company that, hey, this guy's really something. So, that I always remember that, like seeing him against Bret. Of course, Bret's my guy, and then seeing him again, like with Mr. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, and you look at his career here, Chris, he starts out in October of 1984 as part of the American Starship there. Then he's working around different wrestling promotions, comes up with these names, the Starship Coyote, Magnum Scott Hall, Big Scott Hall. Then he became the Diamond Stud, his first trip through WCW with Diamond Dallas Page, and then eventually finds his footing. It takes wrestlers sometimes, especially back in those days, it takes some some time, different names, different gimmicks to finally find the one that fits. And he was able to come in as a Diamond Stud and then roll right into being Razor Ramon, this kind of mixture of Al Pacino and Stephen Bauer's characters from Scarface. And he made it work. Look, it probably would be an offensive character nowadays with put-on accent and whatever in the toothpick, but there is something about his charisma, about his charm, about his ability with that character, create that character that really worked right at a time when the WWF was kind of falling apart because of their characters, because of what was going on with how they were creating these characters. What do you think? What do you think about Scott Hall? What do you think it was that made him stand out and made him eventually kind of hit that peak here as Razor Ramon in the WWF, and then eventually Scott Hall back in WCW?
It was a lot of intangibles, that transcended the gimmick. I mean, just even the gimmick itself and how it was pitched and how it was presented to Vince McMahon, who, fun fact, had never seen the movie Scarface.
Never saw it.
When Scott Hall pitched him the idea. And
of course,
that could have easily been taken as, oh my God, this is so corny. This is so ridiculous. Why is Tony Montana on my, wrestling program? There's clowns and there's, a race car driver and a garbage man and all these people with apparent day jobs. And then they come and wrestle at night. Then now you got this, Cuban gangster who's joining the fray.
Right.
It was, like I said, it could have easily went totally wrong. It could have easily went left. But again, as soon as the guy stepped into the ring, you knew that he was the real deal. He was completely legit, and he was something that you could believe in. You know, not necessarily, like I said, that he's a crime lord in South Miami, but that when he gets in the ring, he knows what he's doing, that he can hurt you. The finisher, the razor's edge, is something that how many of us have razor's edged younger cousin or sibling or someone else, you know, when we were playing wrestling, and how many of us, you know, couldn't wait to do that move when we had a WWE video game and played as Razor or Scott Hall or whatever, or, you know, the WCW revenge games. It's just, I know Lex Luger's the total package, but really Scott Hall was truly the total package. And all those things, no matter really what gimmick that he was ever saddled with, you always saw it in him. You know, he was super crisp in the ring, moved around great for a big guy. Like I said, the finisher was amazing. The mic work was flawless, impeccable, made you feel it, even though he's putting on this accent for no reason. It's just like, you know, you just couldn't lose, man. Just so many intangibles and so much real skill and believability.
Yeah. I mean, and he won 20 championships across half a dozen promotions during his nearly 3-decade career. And that speaks volumes that's how much he was wanted in these territories, in these promotions. They wanted to put belts on him because they recognized his talent. And Chris, you bring up an excellent point. He transcended whatever stereotype or possibly racism gimmick you could or complaint you might have on the gimmick here, because he was so good in the ring. And he played the gimmick in a way that wasn't like, you know, played for being lesser than. He was always cool, smooth, on top of it, riding in the nice cars, wearing the nice clothes. I mean, essentially almost a version of a watered down Ric Flair, but he made himself stand out in such a separate way that works so well. And then boom, dropping all of that and going over into WCW and becoming like just regular Scott Hall with the denim jeans and this whole thing. And remember, Aaron, this was a time when people thought this was really happening. They actually thought Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were jumping from the WWE without their permission, invading WCW. There was they were coming over with the possibility to invade WCW. So there was territorial war here happening, and they eventually turned it around and they convinced Hogan to be a part of them. I mean, what is it? Why do you think how valued was he at this time to head over to WCW when Bischoff, seeing the vision here with him? What is it about him that you thought that kind of made sense for him to be the one of the three guys here in the NWO?
Well, I think part of it is like when you have a gimmick, you have to be, and you want it to succeed, you have to be convicted to it. You have to show conviction. Like look right now, like Roman Reigns. Yeah, he's convicted to be in that. The needle mover, the big dog, the head of the table. He lives it. He breathes it. He does it. And Razor or Scott Hall, like same thing, man. Like he lived that way. Like he made you think that he was that way inside and out of the ring. Was he? I don't know. Maybe. But like he shows up on Nitro 96 and interrupts a match with the great talent, the Mauler.
Yeah.
Remember the Mauler. And Colonel Robert Parker is as his manager. But yeah, he gets on the mic. Larry Zbyszko says, who the hell is this guy? Or what the hell is this? And then he comes in there and he does the great line, "You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here." Yeah. And people are like, what? I mean, as a kid, 96, I'm 10. I'm like, what is happening? What is happening? Why is Razor Ramon on WCW? Because, yeah, there was like, the Observer was around, like Meltzer and them were reporting on stuff. It's not like today. There's no internet where you could like look up these rumors. Like if Scott Hall was going to do this and they were going to do the NWO, you would have known by the end of the day. Yeah. Like you would have known that was going to happen. So when it did happen and he showed up on Nitro, everybody's like, wait a minute. Like what is going on here? And then he even used like WWE terms, like in that time they were doing the Billionaire Ted vignettes in the WWF. So he gets on the mic and he says, "Where's Billionaire Ted?" So it's like calling back to WWF, which makes you think he's like really invading. Like, why is somebody kicking the crap out of this guy? Right. And then he jumps back through the crowd, and you're like, what was that? Mm-hmm. And then he comes back the next week, and then they set up Big Kev, and then they do the whole thing at Bash at the Beach, and I mean, we're off to the races there. So it's just Scott Hall's conviction and everything that he did is what made him so great. And not only that, like have you ever seen a cooler wrestler than Scott Hall? Dude, he makes it cool. It doesn't matter what it is. Like,
Yeah.
I remember him doing a promo against Bret at the Royal Rumble. He said, come this Sunday, I'm going to have gold around my neck, gold around my fingers, and gold around my waist, Chico. And I was just like, dude, that's pretty cool. So to have him doing that, like, he was just always that cool guy, man. Like, never rattled. Like, you never saw him get stressed out unless he lost to the 1, 2, 3 kid. We can talk about that later. But it just always seemed like he was poised, man. He was such a big part of that new generation. It was like Bret, Shawn, and then Razor was right there. So
yeah. Chris, Aaron makes excellent points here, talking about, he's part of the new generation, but he was an old school guy. He was a new generation with the old school training, right? He talks about it in that ESPN documentary, from what I remember, how many times he had to kind of fall down in training. And also he was honed, he was forged to be this guy who respected the old generation, but still blazed a new path in what he was doing with the new generation here. And it isn't just Kevin Nash. It wasn't just Hogan. It was Scott Hall as an essential part of changing the look of professional wrestling here with the NWO. Of course, Bischoff, so I don't want to leave off Bischoff, changing the face of professional wrestling, making it more real, even though, of course, it's scripted, but making it more real in how these promos were delivered. People using their real names. Things like this weren't really done that much until Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hogan, Bischoff, all have changed everything with the NWO. Talk to me about what was your experience seeing him make that jump to WCW and then absolutely change the face of wrestling going forward because of what they did. And you could argue launching the Attitude Era from what they did there in WCW.
Here's how good Scott Hall's debut and as Scott Hall in WCW was. No one, if you ever talk to them about that moment, is going to call it Scott Hall's return to WCW.
Right. That's a good point.
Everybody thinks back on it like that's the first time he was ever there. And that's why the whole angle worked, because in their minds, he was a WWF guy jumping over. But when you gave this intro and we're giving his career highlights, he had been there before. He had been the Diamond Stud. He had been with Diamond Dallas Page. He had been in that promotion for quite some time before making the jump over to become Razor. But it was just like, oh my God, such a, like you said, a stopgap moment in time where it was like, I'm seeing something I'm not supposed to be looking at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everything was played so perfectly. To your point, Aaron, not saying my name is Scott Hall, my name is Razor Ramon. Right. You know who I am. You don't know why I'm here. You want a war? You got one. You know what I mean? Just like, I remember running to get my uncle. He's screaming like, it's finally happening. It's finally happening. WWF versus WCW. We wanted it forever. Oh my God, they're finally doing it. You know what I mean? I got worked hook, line, and center. Oh, they got me completely. And nothing has ever been the same since. It was just such a left turn from what everyone had defined as pro wrestling, this sort of like hokey, larger than life character, but not based in any sort of reality. Because WCW, we like to talk about how sort of hokey WWF was at a certain point. I can remember RoboCop saving Sting at one point in the WCW, and it's like, oh, that's what's going on in that other station. No, thank you. I'm good. I'll stick with the clowns and the kings and whatnot. But it was, just stripped down, totally minimalist. And that's when you got to see like the essence. Like it doesn't matter what Scott Hall's gimmick is. You just, you get to see him for who he is, and he gets to express himself as a real performer and really dig within to find a character that, resonated with so many that you could like everyone's got a Scott Hall impression if you're a wrestling fan.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? There's nothing vanilla about it. So distinct, so special. Just, it was the best thing ever.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. Let's hit some of these Streamlabs that have come, or super chats rather, that come through here. Philip Bryan says there are fewer than 10 guys who truly took 80s era and elevated to 90s era. Scott Hall was one of those guys. This message was brought to you by the NWO. That's right. That's fucking A right.
New world order.
Yeah, this is absolutely correct. There are a few of the 10 guys who took the 80s era and elevated to 90s era. Scott Hall, absolutely one of those guys. He sometimes gets overshadowed because of the larger life personality of Hogan, larger life personality of Kevin Nash, Diesel and all that coming over and doing his thing. But Scott Hall was so essential. He's that extra player you need to win a title. He's that rambunctious guy. He's that edgy guy. He's that no back down guy. He's the guy willing to walk into the ring against anybody and do his thing, and even split off from Kevin Nash to start the Wolfpack, to do his own thing with. Oh no, wait, actually, Kevin Nash split off, right, to do the Wolfpack. Then Scott Hall kind of eventually coming over. So they had the Outsiders. That was a great tag team with them, and then split off to do his own thing, which was pretty strong as well. What do you say about that, there, Aaron? The Wolfpack and all that to have with the NWO with Scott Hall.
Again, it's just cool. Like the theme song, it's cool, great theme song. If I don't go to the gym, but if you do, or maybe even it's on your Spotify, I know it's on a lot of people's Spotify. If you're a wrestling fan, you got that Wolfpack theme on your
absolutely,
because it rules. Yeah, and it's awesome. And the shirts were cool, and they were just NWO was just cool, man. And then they put red, like they made it red and black, and it's like, oh, that's even cooler. Like I don't know how they did this, but I want to go back to one thing. Like we talked about. What makes Scott Hall so captivating? Like he cut promos a lot like Jake. Like Jake the Snake Roberts, when he cut promos, he would be very direct and he would talk a little bit lower, so you'd have to come a little bit closer to listen to what he's going to say. And he felt like he was talking directly to you. Razor kind of did the same thing. He would talk and he would be like, "Yo, I'm going to beat your ass, Chico," and you're like, "What did he just say?" And you kind of get into it. And you're like, okay, I really feel like he can do that. And then they just everything revolutionized. I don't know whose idea these were. I don't know if it was Bischoff. I don't know if it was Hogan, but the merchandise dude, doing the vignettes where they were in the black and white, shooting it from different angles. And it was Hall, Nash, and Hogan just go talking about how they're going to take over WCW. The NWO was so popular at one point, they were going to give the NWO its own show. Thunder was supposed to be the brand split, and that was going to be the NWO show. That's how crazy over it was. And just Scott Hall, okay, I don't know if this analogy works, but I'll try it. If Tom Brady is Hulk Hogan, if Mike Evans is Kevin Nash, then Scott Hall is Gronk. You gotta have Gronk, man. You can throw a bomb to Mike Evans and he'll deliver. But sometimes in the red zone, when you need it, you rely on Gronk because he'll get you there. So Scott Hall was always that glue. They kept it together. Same with Sean Waltman too, but I mean, we'll talk about him too. But it's just he was always that glue, man. You could always rely on Scott Hall to deliver either a great promo or a great match. Not all the time. We don't have to get into that, but it's just when you needed him the most to come through, whether he was zapping Goldberg with a taser, when you needed Scott Hall, he gave you something.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, think about every NWO incarnation that doesn't have Scott Hall in it.
Yeah,
it sucks.
It's just, it's flourless cake. It's, it's not. It's there, but it's something ain't quite right about this. And it was always Hall. Even when he was just out injured or having his personal problems or whatever. Anytime that he wasn't part of the dynamic, it never really felt complete. And so, I mean, that just goes to your point about him just being the glue of everything. And then, I mean, him starting the trend of wearing the red and black. Even when they first wrestled at that Bash at the Beach, the NWO colors were black and white, but Hall was in the red and black from the beginning, already distinguishing himself and making a cool statement away from everybody. And so the Wolfpack, I feel tried to tap into that, when they formed the NWO red and black. But man, it was absolutely necessary in the situation. Got NWO, you could almost chart how much the NWO was getting over from when Hall used to do the surveys.
Yes.
Say, are you here to see WCW or are you here to see NWO? It used to kind of be like pro WCW, then it started to be a little 50-50, and then overwhelmingly here to see NWO towards the end of his time doing those. So yeah, man, it just doesn't happen without him. It doesn't happen.
He's the spice of the sizzle, man. He's like pico de gallo. Pico de gallo without the spice is no good. You got to have that spice, and that's what Scott Hall always brought to the NWO. Chris Taylor here said, I started watching pro wrestling during the new generation. Razor Ramon was a guy that always stood out. In my opinion, he's in top 5 for the greatest IC champions. Chris, I see you gesturing. Take this one.
Oh, without question. I mean, you could talk about all the flippity dippity table, ladders, and chairs, crazy bumps, wild matches, whatever, Hell in a Cell, blah, 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 blah. It all goes back to WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon. I mean, unbelievable angle just in general of Shawn leaves, never lost the belt. My first memory really of Razor Ramon is the first episode, I want to say, of Monday Night Raw. They have a battle royal to determine who's going to be competing for the IC championship that Shawn Michaels left vacant. Second episode, it's Razor Ramon versus Rick the Model Martel to see who the new Intercontinental Champion is. Razor wins. Shawn returns. Now we got 2 belts. We set up a ladder match. And if you go back and even watch that match, it's like, it's not all kinds of insane bumps. Shawn takes a couple bad ones, certainly. Yeah. But it's just so innovative, so just the storytelling and psychology is so on point. And just, Razor pulling down those 2 titles and holding them just solidified him as, no matter what happens from here, this is one of the greatest Intercontinental champions of all time. And one of those guys that never won the world title, never won the big one, never had to. Never had to, never needed it.
Right. He leaves a legacy of respect and honor, and people, when you say his name, as you said earlier, and people have a great reaction to it, and he never won the main title, never needed to. You could probably fit in a small basket the amount of people that didn't need a title to be memorable, and he definitely stands out at the top of that basket as one of those guys. Aaron, thoughts on him being one of the top 5 IC champions in that gentleman's opinion?
Without a doubt, man. Like when this thing, I know it's like a modern version, but when this thing meant something to people, I would say it doesn't mean a whole lot right now. I think that's debatable, but dude, I mean, the Intercontinental title, it was my favorite title. Like, Hogan had the title, Warrior had the title, Savage had the big title, but that was the working title. That's the working man side. It's where you got the best matches, where you got the most entertaining matches. Yeah, you got the big box office with Hogan and Andre, Macho Man versus Ricky Steamboat, or Tito Santana putting in work. Like, I mean, the lineage is wild. Like, you go from like Honky Tonk Man to Warrior to Mr. Perfect to Rick Rude to Kerry Von Erich, to Tornado, to Bret, to Shawn, to Razor, to Diesel, to just all over the Intercontinental title meant so much to a lot of us, especially, most of us that grew, the people that grew up in that new generation era. It was just so important. And it always meant something when Razor had that belt, because like I said, you knew you would get something good out of Razor. Like, it just hit different, like the WWE 2K22 logo. It just hit different, man. Like, it felt right when Razor had the belt. Yeah, Jeff Jarrett had his run. Him and Shawn had the rematch, but it's like Razor Ramon is almost synonymous with that Intercontinental title. Like, when I think of that Intercontinental title, I think of Savage Steamboat, and I think of Razor, and I think of Mr. Perfect, because he's one of my favorites. Like, those are the things that I think of when I think of that championship. And yes, great wrestlers have held that title throughout the years. Generally, it's used as a stepping stone to the main event. But at that time, it just wasn't. I think what ended up happening was Razor comes in. He's doing all the right things. He's putting on good events, good shows. And they saw Kevin Nash, and they said, or Diesel, and they were just like, I think we're going to go with Diesel right now. And then it just never got back around to Scott Hall. I think it would have. Yeah. I think it eventually would have gotten back to Razor, but I think they just went with Kev first.
Yeah. Good points. Efren Guzman says 2 men can get away playing a Latino, Al Pacino and Scott Hall. It is a shame. Oh yeah, 2 men can get away with playing a Latino, Al Pacino and Scott Hall. It is a shame what happened, and this death is a huge blow to wrestling. R.I.P. Yeah, I mean, I think that he makes an excellent point. That's right. Al Pacino is considered honorary Latino for what he did with Scarface, and Scott Hall, I think, would qualify for that. Absolutely. So let's talk about the, this we'll swing back to, I want to spend more time with WWF time and his time as Razor, but it wasn't that we saw this coming necessarily in the way that it came, but certainly it was in play. This is a man who lived a hard life, put himself through a lot of things physically, through his substance abuse issues, through the drinking, through all the stuff that went on, the bumps and bruises, all the hits. And it looked like he was on his way out. And who comes out of nowhere but Diamond Dallas Page, his former partner there when he was the Diamond Stud, and raises $100,000 for Scott quickly, by the way. And that's how much Scott Hall was beloved. And he goes into that house, and if you see the documentary, The Resurrection of Jake Roberts, of Jake the Snake Roberts, he's a part of that documentary, and you see his journey and what he's going through, and you pair that with that ESPN doc that they did where they covered his son and himself, and you see that this is a man who understands the battles of life, who has survived the battles of life, and something like this comes along, this hip replacement surgery. He suffers 3 heart attacks, sadly, and even when death wants to give him the 1, 2, 3, he kicked out when they took the life support off him and hung around for a little while until death finally put the final finisher on him. But God damn it, what does that say about his spirit that he kicked out of the first attempt death was going to put on him for the pin, and he didn't go down. He stayed around for a little while longer and then eventually succumbed to it. But a heck of a legacy here. And what did you think about when you think about like the stuff he's, I mean, how much were you in pain watching Scott Hall suffer, Chris, through the stuff he suffered before, finally turning things around? And this is what makes this is such a tragedy. It'd be different if he had never gotten saved and just kind of led to this and boom, he died. But having been saved by DDP, having gotten back on the straight and narrow, and then having this happen here at this time in his life, I mean, it's heartbreaking.
I mean, absolutely. I think you referenced it earlier, but I remember ESPN did that sort of featurette on Scott Hall's career a while back, some years back. And even seeing it then, man, and just seeing like what a decline he had made, and how they showed some indie show that had booked him, but he was basically being propped up, to be involved, and could barely move and walk around, and just was like, you thought that the curtain was coming then, pretty soon. And so, this was just the most recent kick out for Scott Hall. Like, several times I feel like he's been really kind of done for and made a return, made a comeback, that the hand wouldn't go down for the 3rd time. And, so much props to DDP to get him in the program and help him lose weight and help him get his faculties back together. I mean, there were times where the man was in a wheelchair and couldn't even walk around on his own and all that, and totally got back to it. And he had posted some pictures a couple years ago of himself. He was in great shape, and so, that roller coaster is definitely what, kind of does put a bittersweet, take on what was happened, because you wanted him to be able to revel in that comeback for as long as humanly possible. Yeah. And from what I understand, he made a lot of amends with his family, his son. And so he did get to enjoy that part of his life after all of the dark times. As he said in his Hall of Fame speech, it's been quoted all over the internet the past couple days. Dreams do come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do. And we wanted him to last forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great statement you make, or observation you make there, Chris. He seemed to be enjoying the twilight of his life. He seemed to really be kind of transitioning into such a positive place, looking back with fondness. I mean, there's a what 6-minute video out there with the WWE. If you guys want to watch it on YouTube, where you watch him and Shawn Michaels relive or talk about their WrestleMania 10 ladder match and all that was going on, and Shawn Michaels pretty much admits that he was a bit of a jerk for taking that belt and not giving it back, and then having those guys just kind of sit down, and he looked like he was having such a great time. And when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame for a second time, by the way, most people don't get inducted for a first time. He got inducted for a second time with NWO. The speech he gave, the comments he made were really powerful as well. He looked calm. He looked happy. He looked like just accepting everything that was going on and just enjoying and reveling in it. Even those Raw segments were like Alexa Bliss and all this other stuff. Like, he looked like he was having just fun being a part of it again, when it could have ended for him pretty terribly. And so you gotta marvel at that appreciation and marvel at the many twists and turns of life. You never know when you're at your lowest who's going to show up to help you and where that's going to lead you to, right, Chris? Or Aaron, rather.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, I hate to sound cliche, but he lived life on a razor's edge. Like, he really did. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. Like, the guy, like, man, it's hard. It's hard even thinking about it. But, like, I think Scott Hall loved wrestling again. Like, I don't think he ever didn't love it, but I think, like, there comes a certain point where, you know, like, you're these guys that, like, acted in Star Trek and Star Wars, and it's like, how many conventions can you go to and people say you're the greatest thing in the world before you stop believing it? And you're just signing your name and getting paid, like, hey, yeah, nice to see you. And I think Scott Hall, like, did it because, you know, you need the money, you got to do that kind of stuff. And I think he just was probably burnt out on wrestling. Like, you know, he had a lot of other stuff going on. And I was watching this video where he was at the AEW. It was like one of their first, it wasn't the first one, it was like one of their first press conferences when they were launching. And Scott Hall had like a little cameo in it. And he said, you know, I started as a wrestling fan. I became a wrestler. And now I get to be a fan again. And he's like, and I love it. He's like, and I love this business. And I was like, that's really great. That's Scott Hall in a nutshell. Because how many times have you heard, I'm a fan, I'm a wrestler, I effing hate this business. Like, I never want to do it again. So, and Scott Hall, like, teaching the young guys, man, like showing them backstage at NXT and stuff like that. Like, when Ryan Satin and I went to tour the Performance Center, they took us in one of these classrooms, and there was Keith Lee and Damian Priest and Kushida. They're all sitting at a table watching tape with Shawn Michaels, Terry Taylor, and Scott Hall was there teaching. So, I mean, the guy wanted to give back. And how much knowledge did this guy, like, promos and like, hey, maybe you should do this instead of that. And one of these, to me, I think Jerry Lawler tops him, but the second best working punch that you've ever seen in your life. Just the way he would rear back and throw it. Just Razor had it all, man. Scott had it all. And I think for a while he knew he had it all. Like, let's talk about WrestleMania 10. Let's talk about the ladder match again. Good. What does he do when he comes out on the entranceway? Goes under the ladder. You know why? Because he's just that cool. 7 years bad luck, not for him, dude. Like, he just goes underneath the ladder. And even the commentary, I think Vince is like, that's bad luck. He's like, not for Razor, man. It's just so good. So good. Yeah.
I want to bring this up because you mentioned how he just loved wrestling again. One of my friends, I don't know if you guys know him, Johnny LaQuasto, he posted a memory he had with Scott Hall. I wanted to read it while we're here. He said, I had one true interaction with Scott Hall, and it always will be one of my most surreal experiences of my career. He was a guest trainer at the Performance Center during the summer of 2019, as Aaron was talking about. It was a Tuesday when TV tapings were scheduled. I would always get to go to the Performance Center earlier in the morning on TV days before heading over to Full Sail. On this morning, the PC was empty. I arrived just after 9 a.m., and I'm sitting in my regular spot working on a few things when I hear the door open behind me. I turned around, and it's Scott Hall. He said, I was bored at the hotel, so I figured I'd come down to work with anyone that was here. Insane. Well, no one was there yet that morning, so he proceeded to sit down and talk to me for the next 45 minutes or so, as if we had been colleagues for a year. He had absolutely no clue who I was, and it didn't matter to him. We had a conversation as two people who loved the business. They were working it, and I had the privilege to soak in every story and bit of knowledge he gave to me. His humility and kindness was radiating. He could have easily seen me as just a dude in a suit and turned around and walked away, but instead he treated me as an equal, and it's something I'll never forget. And there are so many people that posted kind of stories like that, from famous wrestlers to people like Johnny, who were commentators for a little while in the WWE, to talk out their experiences with Scott Hall. And everyone, almost to a person, had glowing remembrances of him because of moments like that. So many people offered up tribute. Some of the young generation now, the rest superstars now, offered tributes up to him for influencing them. For Damian Priest offered a pretty strong tribute to him, saying, hey, I wanted to be as cool as Scott Hall. I wanted to be that guy. So many people saying how he opened the door for that type of wrestler to come to the door and have a real career here, Chris. I mean, it's incredible the legacy he leaves with these new wrestlers, as well as the old wrestlers who his contemporaries he wrestled.
100%. I literally just got a text while we're doing this from my friend Enzo Amore, who said he wanted to tell the world big energy to the Hall family. Nobody like Scott Hall. So yeah, I mean his influence and his mentorship and his giving back to the business is just like such a big aspect of him. I have the 6 shirt up just because I saw that Waltman had put up a message, about how when he was out injured, Scott wore the 6 shirt for months and months afterwards, you know what I mean? So that everybody knew that, he's still part of this. He's still around. Go buy his merch, support this man, and he was just that kind of friend. There's this story of when I guess he was scheduled for a match against Jericho and was supposed to go over and win the match. But because he heard the energy of the crowd and kind of realized what was happening with Jericho as a character, he laid down for him, right? And then got shit from Eric Bischoff about it and was like, dude, do you hear that audience? You know what I mean? We're here to entertain them. And it was the right call. So it was like, just that kind of thing for Scott Hall, I just think is one of those sort of lasting impressions that we'll always have of him, people inside and out of the business. They say that when you light many candles, your flame never extinguishes. I think that Scott Hall lit plenty.
That's a fantastic tribute to him when you say that, because so many people. I mean, Triple H tweeted out, he said, I'm gutted. I lost a brother. I love you, Scott. I'll see you down the road. Even DDP kind of saying this first. He's saying the bad guy till the end. Yo, Death, what's your finisher? Can't wait to kick out. He may not have kicked out, but he wasn't going to put that MFer over clean. And sending out a tribute to Kevin Nash. I love you and I miss you more. Scott Hall was a towering figure among his contemporaries. That's what Mick Foley says. A legend inside and outside the ring. My deepest condolences to his friends, family, and everyone. He loved him. And even Jericho, typical Jericho, offered his tribute saying, we didn't always see eye to eye when we worked together, but I'm happy to say we cleared the air. We were friends over the last few years. He was a guest on Talk is Jericho back in 2020. And certainly they talked about all those things that they went through that Aaron was mentioning, or that Chris was mentioning rather, and all of this. So incredible tributes for him. Shivani saying this is a very sad day. Scott Hall was one of the greatest wrestlers to compete in any era. When he walked on Nitro on May 27, 1996, it changed wrestling. Survey says, may the bad guy rest in peace. And one more here from Bischoff. He says, this has been a tough one. 2 people who had such a pivotal role in how my future played out early in my career left us today. So Mike Shields passed away as well. He hired him in the AWA, taught him the TV business from the ground up. Scott Hall, you know the story. Forever grateful, gents. So, so much love, as you said, Chris, here, lighting so many candles, this guy, so many people coming forward to give him so much love. What do you think his legacy is for this young generation here, Aaron? Like, what do you think they take from what Scott Hall has done? Do you learn his stuff in the ring and see that his work rate, his work ethic, his ability to read the crowd, as Chris mentioned, him putting Jericho over when he wasn't supposed to put Jericho over, and also maybe even as a little bit of a cautionary tale to take care of yourself outside the business when the time is done?
Yeah, I think it's all of that. I mean, Scott Hall is a worker's worker, man. Like, great wrestler in the ring, great technique, great everything like that. Did great promos, and just the guy, like I said, the glue. Just be the glue, and then yes, the cautionary part of it. You can get knocked down, but you can get back up again, and I can be proof positive of that. I don't need to be another statistic in the wrestling business that this guy died of an overdose, this guy died of this, and this guy died of that. And I think I'm willing to bet, I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking that his time with Kurt Hennig in the AWA when they were a tag team and won the tag team championships from Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal, not that one, that, you know, he probably took Scott under his wing. And then when they worked together in the WWF, I'm sure it was more like that, because Kurt was the same way. Kurt was a wrestler's wrestler. Kurt was a guy that would teach people. He liked to rib people. He liked to play the jokes, but he was just a great guy to be around. I think Scott took a lot of that and said, okay, you know, he's good. Let me go ahead and he's great at that. Let me go ahead and be the guy that, you know, is that teaches that. You know, let Nash be the cool guy that makes the jokes about making money and stuff, but let Scott Hall, you know, take you to school, take you to class. And I think he'd be that kind of guy. I mean, look at you see him there in the picture. Like, look at the career of Sean Waltman. What would Sean Waltman's career be without Scott Hall?
Yeah.
The 1, 2, 3 kid going over Razor Ramon?
Yeah.
On Monday Night Raw? Like, out of nowhere? Multiple times? Like, unbelievable. And I saw that Just Incredible as well, PJ Polacco, he put up a thing, and he was talking about how when he first started with the WWF, he was PJ was riding, like, Razor asked him, who you riding with tonight? And he said, I'm riding with Pat and Tony Gurria and people like that. He goes, no. He goes, not tonight, kid. He goes, you're going to ride with me. They're going to think you're a stooge. I like you. Come ride with me. And he said, you know, that was just, he sat under the learning tree, learned from Razor, learned from Sean, learned from all those guys. So just a dude that was always, if he saw potential in you, he would help you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Sting offering tribute here as well. Chris saying, heartbreaking, huge loss. He definitely made us all better. Helped me with that one-of-a-kind Scott Hall insight. So many too sweet moments. Scott, you will be missed. And to add on to that, Chris Taylor here chiming in saying, let's not forget he gave the idea for Crow Sting to Sting. How incredible is that? Helping another person get over with a gimmick here that ended up working and revitalizing Sting a la Hulk Hogan. Like, Hulk Hogan was pretty much dead and buried as the red and yellow crap. And here comes, you know, the NWO to revitalize him. And here is Scott Hall kind of giving you an idea to Sting to revitalize him from the face painting woo guy who looked like the surfer dude into something else completely. Pretty incredible to be able to kind of leave that legacy as well as a creator to help other wrestlers to go next level with their stuff as well. Let's see here. All right, the Jughead one says, hi, John, love and respect you, my Latino brother, Chris, my black brother, and Aaron, my white brother. Wow, I've got a lot of brothers, LOL. Scott Hall, J&B here saying, Scott Hall, still younger than Rocha. I kid. And Chris and Aaron, of course. Boy, J&B, it's a shame, man. Here goes. RIP to Scott Hall. I love the 80s era of wrestling, but Scott Hall / Razor Ramon was cool. Love and respect from the UK, bros. Oh, respect. Thank you. Chris, talk to me about what's your memories of Scott Hall as Razor Ramon in the WWF. Let's swing back there. I mean, because that's where he really made his legacy. There is no Scott Hall in the WCW making a big deal jumping over there if he hasn't first laid down an incredible legacy in the WWF. What is your thoughts when you think about his time in the WWF / WWE?
Man, like I said, I've been watching wrestling so long that a lot of the older memories are like scatterbrained throughout my mind. But when you go and like revisit and then things become like refreshed, just everything about like the vignettes, you know, he's hanging out at like some like corner restaurant and being rude to a waitress. He's, you know, pulling up in this like hideous old Cadillac, you know, and talking shit to the camera. The iconic picture of him like hanging like on a stoop with like 4 black kids in Miami, you know, and he's just like suited and booted, like just playing the role, you know, to a T. I didn't know what machismo was as a kid. I didn't understand Spanish, and I thought it meant his gold chains. You know, I loved when he'd take the chains off and just little subtle things. You sometimes caught it on camera, sometimes you didn't. But every time he removed the gold, he said to the guy at the ringside, something happened to this, something going to happen to you. And then throw the toothpick at him. Just all that kind of stuff, man. Just that goes back to what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You could have explained the character Razor Ramon to 20,000 different people.
Right.
But only he was going to come up with all those clicks and mannerisms, the toothpick, there's something going to happen to you with the gold chains, the you know, dusting his hands off after giving someone the razor's edge. Just the I don't even know what this is when he comes in the ring and points at himself and puts the arms out for the razor's edge. Like, come on, how many of us have just done that in a fit of feeling good about yourself? You know what I mean? Yeah. Doing the double points to the guys in the clique. You know what I mean? Just everything about it, man. Just so many good memories. It's hard to pick just one.
And if you go through like a thin doorway, you got to do the Scott Hall walk, man. right through the skinny doorway. Yeah, dude. Like it's just.
Aaron, what are your thoughts here at his time in WWF and WWE?
I mean, could any other character at any other time in WWF get away with razor blade gear and razor blade? Like there were foam razor blades, like foam razor blades. They had necklaces with razor blades on them. Yeah. Like when would that? I assume that's for cocaine. I don't know, but it's like I know Vince was just oblivious to all this. Like I know that he, razor blade, cool logo, and then Bruce Pritchard's probably over there like, yeah, Vince, like that's exactly what it's for. Razor blades, like you just couldn't.
Look at that.
Underrated, iconic gear. I think I sent you the photo of him in that red gear. Dude, that is some of the best gear.
You talking about this?
Oh my god! Dude,
oh yeah,
so clean.
That's great gear.
So clean, and I think he wore it like 2 times. Like it's just perfect.
Yeah,
perfect, dude. Like everything that he did. So you can see him wearing the razor blade there. They sold that to children. They sold it to children with razor blades, but it's just. You just never forget it, dude. I never met the man. Like I never did. I have an autograph like program from him when I went backstage to meet Lex Luger. I didn't get to meet Razor. Unfortunately, I never did. I regret that now. Just like I never met Piper. I really wanted to, but
yeah,
he just intangibles, right? That's what they say in like sports. Like this guy just had all the intangibles that you look for. 5-tool player, whatever you need. You need a coach. He's there. You needed someone to be in your main event program to get somebody over. He's there. You need to bring somebody up and give him a big win. He's there for you. You need to put him in a tag team. He's there. Like just everything you needed to do to pencil. He got a fucking toothpick over.
You got
a toothpick, bro. How many times? I'm sure you guys did this. I'm sure people in the chat are going to just be like, yep. How many times do you go to school with a toothpick in your mouth and a toothpick behind your ear? How many times? Too many, I bet. So,
great
good
point.
Stuff, dude. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Let's hit some of these Streamlabs here. Justin Toner. Thanks, Justin. He says, hey, guys, I remember when the Razor Ramon vignettes aired on Superstars in 1992, and right away, I was captivated by the Razor character. What a great way to intro his character, and Hall nailed it right out of the gate and got over. He will be missed. I mean, this is a great point. Listen, Scarface was what, 1983? This is a gimmick that's 9 years later after the movie was successful, and he was getting over with this gimmick and getting in people's heads with this gimmick because he worked it so well. A gimmick that could have been laughed out of any stadium was made cooler because of the guy who did it, and that speaks volumes. Everyone tells you it's the great ones who can get anything you give them and get it over, and Scott Hall certainly being one of those guys for sure. Let's see. Joseph Curtis says, hey, fellas, this one hit me last night. I'm not old enough to have watched Prime Razor Ramon, but going back and watching his matches and promos, he quickly became one of my favorites. Also, that ladder match with Michaels revolutionized that match type. Yeah, that's another thing too, right? He leaves a legacy with these ladder matches that so many wrestlers have made their names off of. I mean, hell, Edge and Christian and the Hardys made their names off those ladder matches. I mean, you could argue Dudley's as well, but certainly those two tag teams off those ladder matches, making it work right off the bat with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. And from what I understand, that's Meltzer's first 5-star match ever. Was that
WWF? Yeah,
in WWF, yeah. So incredible stuff there.
You know who came up with the concept for the WWF ladder match for them to
go
use
ahead.
it?
Who?
Bret the Hitman Hart.
Wow, really? Okay, there we go.
I mean, he didn't come up with the ladder match per se, but I mean, it just,
right.
To use it in the WWF because him and Shawn did it first at a house show. But yeah, Bret said, "Hey, why don't you do this at WrestleMania?" And they're like, "Okay." And they only had one ladder. Like we didn't mention that. So if the ladder broke, nope, you're screwed. So they had to make it work, and it did.
Yeah, respect. JMB says Hollywood costume idea for this year. Rocha pays tribute to Scott Hall with a Razor Ramon cosplay with the toothpick mullet and everything. think I could lose enough weight by October. Maybe we'll see. Let's see. That could be possible. All right, we got more Streamlabs come through. Christian Ramos says, "Hey chicos, Scott Hall was my intro to wrestling as a kid. I went to my boy's house one Sunday and he had WCW NWO Revenge, and he was the first character I ever picked because he looked cool. The Razor Ramon gimmick was a nice dive in the WWE network. RIP." Yeah, guys, his legacy in the video games. Anything to say about that? Did you enjoy his character? Did you like him being a part of the games?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was usually the first guy picked when he was, featured in any game whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or in subsequent games when he wasn't an active member of the roster. It's like, oh, you got to have a downloadable Razor. You know what I mean? You got to figure that out. Yeah. And, just because the moveset was so cool, the backwards
the fall-away slam.
The fall-away slam. Like you talked about, Aaron, the way he laid in the working punches, the Razor's Edge. I mean, just everything about the guy was so cool, so smooth, so impactful and hard-hitting. Yeah. I mean, even his merch is reversible. You know what I'm saying?
The classic.
Like, what are we talking about?
That vest, baby. That vest.
Love it. I love it. Let's see. Charles Kim here. He's got a couple of things. He says, "I want further proof of Scott Hall's unique skills and charisma. Fake Diesel, Glenn Jacobs / Kane was passable as Diesel. Fake Razor, though, was a complete joke." That's how good he was as Razor.
That's a great point, man. Poor Rick Bogner. Like, he could have. They tried. Just no friggin' way. Like, there's just no way you couldn't do it. And real quick about the video games, like, dude, WrestleMania, the arcade game.
Yes.
You had to be Razor because Razor was the best one. Razor and Undertaker was good too, but Razor, because he actually would hit you with like a machete arm or something. Like, he was always one of the best players. And the graphics for their time were kind of amazing. They had like the live action graphics. They looked great. Of course, he was in Royal Rumble. I've got that somewhere around here. Like, he was in all those great games, those classic games. He's in WWE 2K22 3 times. So he's Razor. He's Scott Hall black and white. He's Scott Hall red and black. So I played with him the other day against the Macho Man Randy Savage. So yeah, dude. Fall away slam into the belly to back off the second rope. Razor's Edge. You're done.
Fair enough. Charles Kim also sent in a Streamlabs. He said, "Bret's tribute to Scott was so real and true. Quote, we've lost so many wrestlers from my era. I do believe that if the days of wrestling 300 days a year had been kinder and more considerate, many of my old friends and brothers would still be here. RIP Scott." Let's bring that up. I think that's fair to bring that up just because we're going to cover everything here. Do I have that up here? Yeah, I think this is it. Oh, yeah, here we go. This is Bret Hart's comments. "I'm saddened to hear the passing of Scott Hall. I wasn't very close to Scott in his later years, but upon reflection, I can flash back to many happy and fun memories of the days when he was my friend. I think Scott carried many heavy crosses long before I ever knew him. He was a good friend to Owen long before he became Razor Ramon. Wrestling life can be so much fun, and at the same time, can take all you have at the same time. I will always remember Scott in the better times with his cool, dry sense of humor while playing gently with my sons. We had many matches, and he was a hard worker. I loved my matches with him at Royal Rumble and the first King of the Ring in 1993. I finally look back on so many terrific matches he had with Owen, Davey Boy, Sean Waltman, and Shawn Michaels. We've lost so many wrestlers from my era, and this is just one more to a list that's far too long. I won't blame any one thing, but I do believe that if the days of wrestling 300 days a year had been kinder and more considerate, if we could have been home with our loved ones more, many of my old friends and brothers would still be here. I think Scott would smile to know that so many people really loved him and will truly miss him. One more wrestler, a fine machine gone too soon. My thoughts and prayers go out to his family, friends, and loved ones." Thoughts on this one, guys? Chris, go to you first.
No, I mean, I think Bret's absolutely right. I mean, when you think about just the brutality of what life on the road was back then and just going from town to town, the company not providing health insurance, not providing transportation, you talk about pro athletes in the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, whatever. They got training facilities. When you're done with, the game, you're doing ice baths, you're doing therapy, you're doing rehab, you get all kind of things going on. These guys get in a car and go to the next city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that not only opens you up to problems physically down the road or injuries while you're, in the mix of things, but also substance abuse, because you guys start getting on so many painkillers and, anything to kind of take the edge off. You're drinking, you're doing drugs. It's like it's such a easy slope to kind of slide down when you're in that lifestyle. And it's like, yeah, if more care was kind of put into the quality of life of a lot of these performers, I would definitely say that a lot of them would still be around today. A lot of the ones that make it now are super lucky in a lot of ways, and it really shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
And then even like little things of lack of consideration too. I know they talked about it on Bruce Pritchard's podcast about how when they were doing the NWO angle in WWE after WCW had folded, and they have Austin spraying Scott Hall with real alcohol when the man is in rehab. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on, man. You got to think about people's well-being a lot better than that. And so, yeah, I agree with Bret 100%. And hopefully, somebody starts to take notice. And look, let me be fair. Vince McMahon has spent a lot of money on sending wrestlers to rehab and, paying medical expenses later in life. But sometimes you got to do some proactive steps, so that we don't have to get there.
He's also been willing to open the door again. You know what I mean? Scott Hall and Nash leaving was huge, was well publicized, and Vince was still willing to bring them back with the NWO. It didn't really work out in the WWE, but he was willing to bring them back. And listen, Scott Hall was the one who convinced Nash to make the jump. It was Scott Hall. So we don't even have an NWO or an Outsiders or an Attitude Era possibly without Scott Hall talking Kevin Nash into coming over and those guys being part of WCW. Aaron, thoughts on Bret Hart's comments here? I was just making a quick diatribe there. What do you think about that?
I mean, there's an old wrestling proverb, right? Like Bret was right. Bret's always right, so it's not surprising.
Proverb. I don't know what the fuck is.
Bret screwed Bret is the only proverb I've ever heard.
Hey, well, that is true. Bret did screw Bret. I will give you that one. But yeah, man, it doesn't surprise me. Bret's an eloquent speaker when he talks about something that he loves. Again, wrestling. And Scott was a guy much like Bret. They both love wrestling. Scott didn't come from the wrestling family that Bret did, but Owen, like you said, he was friends with Owen and Davey and his family members, and he never had a bad match with Scott Hall. Like he mentioned King of the Ring. That's better than their Rumble match. Like it's a great match for a King of the Ring opener. Like, are you kidding me? It's amazing. So it doesn't surprise me that Bret had so much respect for Scott, because that's the kind of guy that Bret would lean into. Like he loved the business. He loved wrestling. He was a fan, then a wrestler. That's the kind of guy that Bret would want to be around. So that doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah.
Something else we didn't mention. You would talk about revolutionary, something that Scott Hall was involved in. Yeah. The Click at MSG. We didn't even talk about this.
Right. Please go ahead.
So you have kayfabe is not dead, like not quite. So we're sitting here. I think it's 96. I don't know exactly, but dude, a big house show at MSG like they always do. They just did it for this year, and there's a match between Shawn Michaels and Diesel, Kevin Nash, for the WWE Championship. Shawn Michaels beats Nash because they're leaving. They're going to WCW at this point. We know this. Razor had a match previously in the night with Triple H. Yeah. Or Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time. So when the match is over, Shawn Michaels bends down. Diesel's knocked out. Bends down, kisses Diesel. He pops right back up like nothing ever happened. And then out comes Scott Hall. Out comes Hunter Hearst Helmsley. These are good guys and bad guys. Like, this doesn't happen. They don't mix. And they do what's now known as the curtain call. And they all hug and do the click hand signal. And they all just embrace. And nothing like that had ever been done in the history of the business. It blew the doors off of everything, because this was literally exposing. There you go. This, like, the question was asked on Twitter the other day, like, what's the newest, like, treasure that, like, lost media treasure in pro wrestling? And a good copy of this, because we only see the fan footage. Yeah. Like, a good print of this is to me is the ultimate treasure. But I mean, they took a lot of shit for it. Like, Hall and Nash were gone. They were leaving. Yeah. They weren't going to give Shawn a bunch of shit. He was a world champion. What are you going to do to him? Nothing. Right. And then now it all fell on poor Hunter Hearst Helmsley, who was supposed to win King of the Ring that year. in was it 96? Supposed to win King of the Ring. Doesn't happen. But who does win the King of the Ring? Stone Cold Steve Austin. So in a way, if he doesn't break kayfabe, they don't put the hammer down on Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and we don't, at least right away, get Stone Cold Steve Austin. So another contribution to the business. Apparently, Vince McMahon took up for him, although Bruce Pritchard and Jim Cornette wanted to kill them. So just another groundbreaking moment.
I own the company, guys. Chill the fuck out. I do want to read Kevin Nash's tribute as well here. We should definitely not end the show without reading it. This was before he had passed away. Kevin Nash revealed Scott's on life support. Once the family's in place, they will discontinue life support. I'm going to lose the one person on this planet I've spent more of my life with than anyone else. My heart is broken, and I'm so very fucking sad. Listen, I may tear up when I read this. I'm telling you guys right now. I love Scott with all my heart, but now I have to prepare my life without him in the present. I've been blessed to have a friend that took me at face value, and I him. When we jumped to WCW, we didn't care who liked or hated us. We had each other. And with the smooth Barry Bloom, we changed wrestling both in content and pay for those a lot that disliked us. We were the outsiders, but we had each other. Scott always felt he wasn't worthy of the afterlife. Will God please have some gold-plated toothpicks for my brother? My life was enriched with his take on life. He wasn't perfect, but as he always said, the last perfect person to walk the planet, they nailed to a cross. As we prepare for life without him, just remember, there goes a great guy. You ain't going to see another one like him again. See you down the road, Scott. I couldn't love a human being any more than I do you. Chris, incredibly powerful words. I'm tearing up, getting emotional reading them. I mean, Kevin is a really heartfelt guy, man. He's like that. He's like Radio Raheem. When he loves you, he loves you. But when he hates you, you know, that's it. And Kevin, you can tell such a deep well of love for Scott and going through all the battles, ups and downs, and all of that. You know, Kevin not facing as many personal demons as Scott did, but living and dying by all the ups and downs there. And he's right. As the outsiders, they changed how much money wrestlers made. They didn't just change the business in terms of characters and the attitude era, but they also changed the business in terms of what wrestlers can command financially, what they can make in this business, how many revenue streams, having more say in what they can make, and all of that. It's incredible what they were able to do and what Scott Hall was a part of.
100%. I mean, one of his great quotes that I always love to say about pro wrestling was, the only thing real in wrestling is the money and the miles. And so he was all about, like we talked about, quality of life for performers, man. And, you know, I saw somebody in the chat say it, and they're 100% right. Like, one of the big selling points about going to WCW wasn't just the money, it was the fewer dates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so understanding the sort of leverage and power that you had as a performer, because you're what makes the product go at the end of the day. Promoters can say what they want. If you don't got the talent, nothing happens. So, you know, opting to leave his comfortable situation for one that was going to be better for him and his family, definitely set a big precedent in the future and opened the door for a lot of guys to figure it out.
Yeah. Aaron, thoughts on Kevin Nash's words here, and also how he was able to change. I mean, the Favorite Nations contract, all of that changed the business, man.
Well, I mean, let's not. I mean, Scott Hall didn't want to leave WWF. Like, let's be real. Like, he didn't want to leave. He wanted to do some dates in All Japan. He wanted to bump in pay. Like, All Japan was going to pay him to come in. Vince wasn't going to do it because nobody else was doing it. It's not like if you open the floodgates, everybody's going to want to do it.
Right.
So do I blame him for going to WCW for better money and less time? No, I don't. And probably creative control to do that.
Yeah.
You wanted to? No, I don't blame him for that at all. In terms of Kevin Nash, I can't imagine how difficult at times it was to be Scott's friend.
Yeah.
Because you are
somebody, if you love him as much as Kevin did.
Oh God. Yeah. It's hard. It's gotta be hard, man. Like, that's your brother. That's somebody you've been day in, day out. I mean, these guys knew each other during Scott's second run as the Diamond Stud in WCW. Like, him and Nash were in a stable for a brief period of time, so they knew each other for a long time.
Right.
And I just can't imagine some of the stuff that they've seen. And I can't imagine some of the great things they've seen, some of the great things they've conquered and been through together, and some of those deep, like, just to be a fly on the wall, or just to be under that tree listening to them talk, going down the road about different stuff. Like, it's just, I mean, you could write novels about it. Like, that to me is what keeps me as a wrestling fan. Just those stories and the bigger, larger than life characters and the people that just really care about the business and want to do right by it. And we haven't really talked about him a whole lot, but I mean, Sean Waltman's in on this too. Like, Sean Waltman was a great friend to Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and I'm sure sometimes it wasn't good. They probably weren't good to be around together, Waltman and Hall and Nash. And then probably sometimes it was hard to be Waltman's friend, or sometimes it was hard to be Nash's friend. So these guys have been through it, man. And just to lose a brother like that, I mean, I really hope, I'm sure we've all lost people close to us. I hope that people out there, like, if you're watching this, listen to this, I hope it never happens to you, because it is some of the most heartbreaking things. Like, my father passed away 4 years ago, and I just came to terms with it.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable stuff. Like, it just, that's all I can say is just like, it's just a different experience. And I hope you guys never have to feel that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Losing. It took me 3 years to finally accept the death of my father, and it's and then you cross that line, and what it becomes is you appreciate the time you did have rather than dwelling in the pain of the time you lost. And it's really important to remember that. And of course, that'll happen hopefully for everybody who knew Scott down the road as this goes along. But it's not going to be easy, because a guy like him is, as Nash said, is a one-of-a-kind guy. One-of-a-kind guy. We're never, ever going to see his like again. We'll see versions or people that remind us of Scott Hall, but in no way will we ever see someone quite like Scott Hall again. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you can't talk about Scott Hall and really appreciate all about Scott Hall without also talking about some of the uncomfortable stuff with Scott Hall. That's what goes into appreciating someone from top to bottom, because we all got shit. We all got shit we went through. We all got shit we did when we were younger. We all got stuff, mistakes we made, and stuff we've said to people in certain moments. That's all part of it. With Scott Hall, it was the flakiness in the back half of his career. It was the substance abuse policies, or issues rather. And there was also, of course, that the murder that happened in 1983, where he claimed it was self-defense. He took another man's gun from him and killed him because he said it was in self-defense. So all of that is a piece in the puzzle, the whole puzzle of appreciating Scott Hall and kind of seeing what he became and going through the ups and downs. And that's why it makes it even more of a tragedy that he goes now where it felt like he was enjoying his life again for the first time in a very, very long time. But then again, maybe that makes the ending so much more beautiful, because he came out of it once and for all, and he was in a good place, and he was in a positive place. And at least he got there. And so, yes, we lost him early at only 63 years old, but he got there. And for those of us who loved him and loved so many of the matches that he was in, it means the world that he got there, and you have to appreciate all the good and the bad to really love and appreciate somebody's presence on this earth, including friends, family members, or idols, or icons or heroes like Scott Hall. Just my 2 cents on the whole thing. Any final words here, gentlemen? Anything we missed? Aaron, I know I was kind of saying if you wanted to throw in some stuff here. Anything I missed? Anything we missed that we didn't talk about? Either you two want to bring up? And as we're doing that, please remember to hit a like on this video, ladies and gentlemen. Hit that like on this video. Let's get to 100 likes on this. We'd really appreciate it. Any final Streamlabs or super chat? Send them in now before we wrap up. Aaron or Chris, anything more we need to talk about with Scott and with Scott Hall, rather?
I think it's something that's interesting for me is when I was in college, in like 2004, 2005, on ESPN Classic, they would run, like, late at night, they would run AWA episodes, like old AWA stuff. And I was watching one night just for fun, and out comes this guy, and they announce him as Big Scott Hall. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, Big Scott Hall? And they showed him, and I was like, wait a minute. That's Scott Hall? Like, he's got like the Native American like wrist gauntlets. He's got a big mustache. He's got like a big afro. He looks gigantic. Yeah. And I'm just like, that's Scott Hall, isn't it? Like, that's Razor. And it blew my mind. Like, I'd never seen that before. That's something I wanted to mention. Scott Hall, deceptively large. Like, you think because he's hanging around Hogan, he's hanging around Nash, like these Hogan's jacked and Nash is like, 6 foot, whatever. Scott Hall's a big dude, huge guy. So, and that's something we also didn't mention, like how he moved in the ring, super agile guy. Like that's hard to do, be a big guy and put all that stuff there. So just more kudos to Scott Hall. And we didn't even mention it, the entrance theme.
Yeah, go ahead, man, please.
The entrance, the Razor Ramon entrance theme, iconic, dude. Iconic theme. Every time it pops up, you just like, oh yeah. Like you just, I don't know, man. Like I don't know how to describe like his life. I really think like I'm going to be cliche again and be like Andy Dufresne. Like he crawled through a river of crap, came out clean on the other side, man. Like it just, I'm so glad that he turned it around. He went to DDP, he got clean, he did his stuff. It's just so good to see because that E60 documentary just really had me in a bad place with Scott. It really did. And then when you kind of saw him at the accountability crib and DDP was helping him, it's just like, yeah, man, remember how great Scott Hall was? Like it's so good to see him, and he was great in the Hall of Fame. One of the great Hall of Fame speeches, not just that little bit, which is of course iconic, but just one of the great ones. Like him and Booker T have some of the two of the best Hall of Fame speeches you'll ever hear. So do yourself a favor, go check out some Razor matches. I've been doing it all day. Like him and Sean at SummerSlam 95, him and Bret at Rumble 93, and the ones that we've been talking about, him and Diesel with Walter Payton in his corner, sweetness. So, I mean, check that out. Skip the Bob Backlund match at WrestleMania 9. Nobody needs to watch that. Him and Rick Martel on Monday Night Raw. Even Rick Martel, one of the greats that just kind of flies under the radar. But his stuff in WCW with Goldberg, like he was one of the guys, man. Like Goldberg got that initial push. He beat Scott Hall. Like they put enough trust in him to work with Scott Hall, and Scott worked him. And just damn, man, it hurts. It hurts, dude. I'm sorry.
And that's one of the big things about Hall as well. Like he was a jobber when he first started out. He got it. He knew the value of a loss and a win, what that was. So him giving it up to the 1, 2, 3 kid, the Dynamite Kid, him giving it up to Sean Waltman, him giving it up to Goldberg and putting him over. Like all those things are him giving back because he remembered what it was like to be a jobber, what it was like to be in those situations. So helping elevate another wrestler, that's loving the business. When you're willing to put someone else over, that's loving the business. You never heard rarely heard, if I can't recall that I've ever heard anyone complain that Scott wouldn't put someone over. Quite the reverse. Any final thoughts here, Chris, about Scott? Anything we didn't touch on that you want to mention? Anything we didn't say about in tribute to Scott Hall?
I think we said it all mostly, except for one probably little trivia fact. One of the few guys to perform in WWF, WCW, ECW, and WWE. Wow. There's definitely footage you can find of his very, very short-lived run in Extreme Championship Wrestling, but he definitely showed up during the height. And, just the epitome of a star everywhere he went, man.
Yeah.
I mean, even on top of that, New Japan, All Japan, TNA, like the guy was everywhere. And don't forget, like you said, that ECW coming out to the Fugees, ready or not.
Ready or not, yep.
Amazing.
Right. NWA, AWA, WWF, all of that. WCW, all of it. Yeah, NJPW. He was a part of it all. Yeah, even something called CW. I hadn't even heard of Catch Wrestling Association.
I believe I think that was a Dusty thing in Florida. I could be wrong, but
okay. Right.
I think that's where he got his start.
And then when he went to TNA, he was even part of Juggalo Championship Wrestling, for God's sakes. Then came back.
That was during the
downtimes, right? That's right, for sure. But yeah, I mean, all of that stuff. But the fact that he was able to work for so long, that tells you about how much people wanted him in any way that he came. People wanted Scott Hall to be a part of it. And, thank God at the end, he kind of realized, hey, I can't do it anymore. I'm going to hang out and show up at these occasional appearances and do my thing on WWE television, have some fun. So, all right. Anything else? So we go. Oh, wait. One last question to both of you. Favorite Scott Hall moment or favorite Scott Hall match? You choose. Aaron, I'll go to you first.
It's got to be. I think it's got to be the ladder match. Just how good it was, how everything just went. It's probably my favorite Scott Hall match. Just everything that worked, like from the bumps they took, from the psychology of using the ladder, Shawn getting tied up in it. There's a lot of people that said that Shawn Michaels had a great match with a ladder. It's like that's obviously not true. Scott Hall was amazing. So That probably, and then name a promo, and he's great in it. So there. Well, hold on, I will say this: there was one promo that he did with Shawn Michaels when him and Shawn were getting ready to do the WrestleMania 10 thing. I remember them talking about it on Bruce Pritchard's podcast. I went back and watched it, where Shawn was being an asshole, and he blew a bubble like a chewing gum bubble in Razor's face. Razor took out his toothpick, and he said, "Sorry to burst your bubble, Chico," and popped the bubble. Good stuff, man. Just good stuff.
Chris, favorite Scott Hall match or moment, my man?
I mean, we mentioned so many of them, man. It's hard to pick up a distinct one from that. I remember one though that it might be problematic in hindsight, but he had a feud with Goldust, and I remember I always loved.
Yes.
Hey,
I remember
gave
this
him a shout out on Twitter. So yeah,
I remember this moment where, because they were kind of doing the kind of gay panic thing, like I said, problematic for now, definitely doesn't age well, product of its time. But I remember he cuts this one promo where he sort of transcended that and said, "You know what, Goldust, you think I sexy? You right." And I love that. I think about that all the time. And where it was like, it ain't about none of that. It's about this IC championship and me walking away with it. And that's what it's all about. And I love that promo to death.
Yeah, agreed. Listen, there's so many great moments as an NWO man. I mean, there's a million promos I could bring up. There are a million moments, him tasing Goldberg, all that stuff you guys have spoken about before. It's hard to pick one. So I'm going to go all the way to his Hall of Fame speech in 2014. Man, one of the hardest things in the world is to come back from all that hell and then sit up there and get inducted and then let people remember how great you were by dropping one of your classic lines. And, and him saying, as you mentioned earlier, Chris, bad times don't last, but bad guys do. And that matters. And it's the memory. What he's talking about is the legacy, the memory of the bad guy. And that's what we have. And that's why we spent almost an hour and a half talking about Scott Hall, because he was right. This guy is going to last forever. As long as there is pro wrestling. Hell, if pro wrestling wrapped up tomorrow, people would still have their memories of Scott Hall to talk about as old men in nursing homes, to talk about and show and talk to people about and reminisce and remember, because he was a one-of-a-kind personality who left an indelible mark on anybody who watched pro wrestling for over 3 decades of work. That's an incredible, incredible legacy to leave for future generations of pro wrestlers who are coming up. Young people will remember. I don't think he's one of these ones that's going to get lost in the annals of history. He's one that people will reference all the time for a lot of reasons that you just mentioned, Chris, and also what you mentioned, Aaron, about his mobility in the ring. A big man like that being able to pull off those moves, those quick moves, those lightning fast moves, having that kind of durability. You talk about bodies that are made for certain sports. His body was made for pro wrestling. Top to bottom, made for pro wrestling. And that's an incredible thing about him. All right, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all so much for joining us live here. Now, sorry we couldn't bring any in, but didn't expect us to go this long. But unfortunately, that's the thing. All three of us have time commitments we got to get to. So we appreciate you all madly. Thanks so much for the Streamlabs, the super chats that you sent in. Those mean so much to us. And thanks to these two gentlemen for joining me here at our own NWO, so to speak, our own three-man gang here, having some fun. Chris Burns, where can people find you, my man? Everything you got going on?
You can find me at Chris_please, or in my apartment watching hella Scott Hall matches.
Respect. And my man, Aaron Turner, where can they find you, buddy?
Find me on Twitter at only Aaron Turner, where unfortunately tonight we got to say goodnight to the bad guy.
There it is. Absolutely. And me, you can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. This isn't a kind of show where I pump up everything else I'm doing. We're just doing a tribute. And I just want to send much love to Scott Hall's family from all of us here at Strong Style. We send you our love and our thoughts of comfort and condolences as you deal with the loss of an incredible human being in your world and our world as well. Y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new live episode here of Strong Style. Peace. Thank you.